It was supposed to be just a weekend escape, two guys ditching the noise of the city and heading into the quiet hills of Washington. Derek said he knew a scenic backroad that would lead us through the Cascades. Barely any traffic. Just trees, sky, and whatever else we bring with us. It sounded like a dream. I didn't need much convincing. The forecast hadn't warned us about the flash flood. We were 3 hours into the drive, winding through pine-covered hills, when the rain began. Not a drizzle, more like the sky just broke open. The road turned slick in seconds. Cars began to slow, then stop. Headlights gleamed through the downpour, scattered like fireflies in panic. Traffic jammed. Sirens echoed in the distance, distorted by the storm. Derek looked calm as ever, one hand on the steering wheel, the other tapping his thigh to a rhythm only he could hear. "We're not going anywhere anytime soon," he said, pulling the car onto the gravel shoulder beside a ditch filling fast with muddy water. I nodded, trying not to show how nervous I felt. We were stuck. With no signal, no music, and no clear plan. He glanced over, smiled that familiar half-smile that always made me forget my name for a second. "Might as well get comfortable," he said. He unbuckled his seatbelt, climbed into the back seat, and patted the spot beside him. "Come on. It's warmer back here." I hesitated. "Isn't this a little close?" He laughed. "I mean, unless you prefer shivering up front like a sad Labrador. Your call." I swallowed my nerves and climbed in beside him. The back seat felt tight. Intimate. Like we'd just stepped into a bubble of silence where only our breathing mattered. Then came the soft click of the doors locking. I looked at him, surprised. He shrugged. Just being safe. Didn't want any rain zombies getting in. His smile was teasing, but something in the air changed. The humor faded into a silence heavy with something else. We sat side by side, legs touching slightly. The storm pounded the roof above us, but inside, it was quiet. The kind of quiet that made you aware of every breath, every heartbeat. He leaned his head back, watching the water run down the windows like tears. "You know," he said softly, "I've been on a lot of roads. But never one that felt like it might actually lead somewhere." I turned to him. "You mean this road?" "No. I mean this moment." God. It wasn't like Derek to say things like that. He was smooth, funny, occasionally flirty, but this was different. This was real. I reached for the blanket in the trunk behind us and pulled it over our legs. The temperature had dropped fast. Derek shifted slightly, his arm brushing mine. He didn't move away. In fact, he turned toward me. Close now. Really close. His eyes searched mine, and I felt something in my chest tighten, then melt. "You ever wonder," he whispered, "why some moments feel like they're asking you to choose something you're not ready for?" "I feel that way right now," I said before I could stop myself. His fingers brushed the side of my face. "Slow. Gentle. I won't push," he said. "But if you want this, you don't have to wait anymore." I didn't answer. I just leaned in. The kiss was quiet. Careful. The kind that doesn't ask questions. The kind that answers them. It didn't last long. Just enough to spark something that would smolder long after the storm passed. When we pulled apart, Derek exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. He rested his forehead against mine. "I've kissed people before," I whispered. "But it never felt like this." He nodded. "That's how I know it's not just the rain talking." We stayed like that for a while. Wrapped in the warmth of a moment we didn't understand but didn't want to end. Outside, the storm kept roaring. But inside that car, with the doors locked and the world held at bay, something had begun. Something I wasn't ready to lose. The flood didn't last, but something between us lingered long after the water receded. When we finally returned to the city, everything felt different. The streets we used to walk felt quieter, duller. Or maybe it was just me, watching Derek with new eyes clouded with hope and the kind of fear that only blooms when something actually matters. He started texting me every night. Not just good night or sweet dreams, but little things, inside jokes, photos of the takeout he knew I liked, audio messages of him humming songs I once mentioned I loved. The kind of messages that make you feel seen. Wanted. We weren't official. I never even asked what we were. It was unspoken but thick between us, this undefined closeness that made my stomach flutter. Every time his name lit up my screen, it felt like the beginning of something big, like a window cracking open on a life I didn't know I was brave enough to want. We met for late-night drives, often without a destination. He'd pull up with that same crooked grin, music barely audible from the speakers, and say, "Let's go nowhere." We'd end up parked somewhere quiet, sometimes talking for hours, sometimes not talking at all. Just breathing next to each other. One night, he reached over mid-sentence and held my hand. Didn't let go. At some point, I started sleeping at his apartment. Not every night, he said he liked his space, but enough that I left a toothbrush there. Enough that I memorized the rhythm of his breath when he slept. He played the guitar late at night, just before bed. Said music helped him keep the ghosts quiet. I never asked what he meant. I wanted more. Of him. Of us. But then, things began to shift. Small things. Delays in his replies. Cancelled plans. A new distance in his voice. He'd still smile when we were together, still kiss me like it meant something, but it felt borrowed. Like time on a clock that wasn't ours. I told myself I was overthinking. That people get busy. That love, whatever this was, doesn't always come clean and easy. But something inside me felt uneasy, like a thread tugging from the hem of a sweater. Small, barely visible, but pulling something apart. Caleb noticed before I admitted it to myself. He cornered me at our usual coffee spot, leaned across the table, and said, "I saw him. Derek. With a woman." I blinked. What? Yesterday. That cafe on Mercer. They were sitting together. Looked close. I forced a laugh. Probably Rachel. He mentioned her once. Said she was his ex. Caleb's face stayed still. "You sure that's all she is?" I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. That night, I asked Derek casually, not wanting to sound jealous. "You still talk to Rachel?" He raised an eyebrow. She had a family thing. Needed support. We've been friends a long time. That should have calmed me, but the way he said support felt too vague, too polished. Still, I smiled and let it go. I didn't want to seem insecure. I didn't want to give him a reason to pull further away. And yet, the silence between us kept growing. I waited longer for his calls. He stayed out later. One night, after hours of waiting, I sent a message, "You okay?" No response. I didn't hear from him until noon the next day. "Fell asleep," he said. "Rough night." The lie wasn't in the words, it was in the tone. Detached. As if I were just another name in his contacts list. And still, I held on. Maybe it was the memory of that first kiss in the back seat. Maybe it was the way he made me feel like I was the only person who understood his silences. Or maybe it was just fear, that if this didn't work, then nothing would. That love wasn't something I deserved if I couldn't make it stay. But beneath all that hope, doubt was blooming like weeds through concrete. Something wasn't right. And I could feel it, just beneath the surface, waiting to break through. I wasn't ready to face it. Not yet. But I knew it was coming. The unraveling didn't happen all at once. It came in slow, quiet moments, missed calls, short replies, empty promises that once held warmth. The Derek I thought I knew began to blur. He still showed up sometimes, still kissed me like he meant it. But I started to notice the moments in between, the way he stared too long at his phone, the way he smiled at me like he was somewhere else entirely. I told myself people drift sometimes. That maybe it was stress. Maybe work. Maybe anything but what my gut was screaming. Then came the photo. Caleb sent it one afternoon. No warning. Just a blurry image, zoomed in, taken from across the street. Derek. With Rachel. Her hand resting on his knee. His face turned toward hers, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. It was the kind of smile you give someone when your guard is down. When you feel safe. Intimate. The caption was short. "I didn't know how else to tell you." I stared at the photo for what felt like an hour. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just felt hollow, like the inside of my chest had quietly collapsed. I finally texted Derek, trying to stay calm. "Hey, can we talk tonight?" He replied 4 hours later. "Yeah. Late though. Rachel had a family emergency. I need to be there." I couldn't breathe when I read that. It wasn't just that he was with her, it was how casually he told me. As if I didn't matter. As if I'd been downgraded to a name on the back burner, a comfort he could pick up and put down whenever he needed. I didn't reply. Instead, I drove. No destination. Just streets and turns until the sun disappeared and the city lights flickered on around me. Somehow, without planning to, I ended up on the street outside Derek's apartment. Rachel's car was parked out front. Her license plate, the small sunflower sticker in the corner, I recognized it from the photo. I sat in my car across the street, engine off, windows fogging. The longer I waited, the colder I felt. But I couldn't move. Couldn't turn the key. Something inside me needed proof, even if I already knew the answer. An hour passed. Then another. Finally, a light turned on in his second-floor window. The curtains shifted. 2 figures moved behind them. A shadow leaned into another. A kiss. There it was. The confirmation my heart hadn't wanted. The betrayal I'd already felt but had tried to deny. I didn't storm over. I didn't call. I didn't shout into the night or demand answers. I just sat there, watching, letting the weight of it press down on me. All I could think about was that night in the car, during the flood. The way he pulled me into the back seat, locked the doors, whispered that he'd never leave. That moment had felt sacred, untouchable. But now it felt staged, rehearsed. He hadn't locked the world out. He'd just locked me in, kept me in the dark while his heart belonged somewhere else. I drove away slowly, headlights off until I hit the main road. The city looked different now. Cold, unfamiliar. When I got home, I lay on the floor, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed once. "Derek." A simple message, "Hope you're okay." I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I finally understood something. He had made a choice. And now, I needed to make mine. Even if it hurt. Even if it broke me. The truth was no longer hiding. It was standing right in front of me. Days turned into weeks. The ache didn't fade, but it changed shape. It stopped feeling sharp and urgent and started settling like dust, quiet, constant, everywhere. I didn't speak to Derek. Not once. He didn't try to reach me either, not beyond that final half-hearted message. Maybe that was what stung the most. Not the cheating. Not the lies. But the way he let me disappear from his life without even a fight. Rachel posted a photo not long after. It showed the 2 of them standing under fairy lights, her head resting on his shoulder. The caption read, "Sometimes the road leads you right back where you're meant to be." It shouldn't have hurt. But it did. I deleted our texts, one thread at a time. I closed my eyes before each swipe, like I could trick my heart into believing it didn't remember every word. I tried to hate him, but all I could feel was emptiness. Like he'd taken something with him when he left. Caleb checked in a few times. I ignored the first couple of messages, unsure what to say. When he finally showed up at my apartment, I didn't have the energy to argue. He brought coffee and silence, and sat with me on the couch like he was waiting for the version of me that used to laugh too loud to come back. "You don't have to carry it alone," he said eventually. "I don't even know what I'm carrying anymore," I murmured. "You loved someone who didn't love you back the way you needed. That's not your fault." That hit harder than I expected. Not because it was cruel, because it was true. Love, when it's real, doesn't leave you guessing. It doesn't flicker in and out like bad reception. It's consistent, honest, steady. I had mistaken intensity for commitment. I had romanticized the storm because it felt dramatic, cinematic, like something worth holding on to. But storms aren't homes. They're warnings. One evening, I drove back to the same road where the flood had trapped us that day. The highway had reopened, repaired and repaved. No sign of the water that had once surrounded us, just endless sky and smooth asphalt stretching ahead. I pulled over near the overlook. Stepped out. The wind was gentle now, the sky soft with sunset. I stood there for a long time, letting the breeze wash over me. I remembered how I felt that day in the car, so sure that something real was starting. But maybe that was the lesson. Sometimes, what feels real in the moment is just that, a moment. Beautiful, but brief. I pulled out my phone and opened Derek's contact one last time. No photos. No messages. Just his name on a screen that used to mean everything. I hit delete. A small, simple act. But it felt like reclaiming space in my life. Not revenge. Not bitterness. Just release. As I got back into the car, I whispered, not to him, but to myself, "You deserved more than locked doors." And this time, I drove forward. Not away from him, but toward something better. Toward myself.